Good afternoon, folks. How are we doing today? I'm a bit sick. Let's just start off with that. Good grief. I was off entire last week. Not due to illness. That was due to day job stuff. So that was frustrating not being able to stream. And then yesterday I was kind of feeling all kind of full of cold. Today, still feeling a bit rough, but I'm keenly aware that I was out the entire of last week. So we will see how we do today. Apologies if I just have to call this at some stage. But I think I'm alright. Just kind of sinusy and sniffing a bit. But I've taken some cold and flus about 15 minutes before this, so hopefully we'll be fine. So let's run through housekeeping-y stuff first, and then move on to the bulk of this. So, like I said, I was out all of last week, day job stuff. My day job, I generally get to work from home most of the time. Sometimes I have to go into the office, I have to go into London. Occasionally, I have to travel further afield. And then last week was just the unfortunate coincidence where I was away all day on Tuesday, and I had to go Monday night, or Monday evening rather, and I'm coming home Wednesday during the day. So I was away for 2 nights then. And then I had to go up to Leeds on Thursday and back on Friday. So I spent 3 nights away, which it's exhausting. It really is. And also from a kind of being a dad to a 4-year-old, and therefore putting all that pressure on my wife. That's not great. Fortunately, this was a freak occurrence, this one, but I'm very glad that I'm not going anywhere this week, nor am I particularly for the foreseeable, which is good. But yeah, and also the fact I was away for 3 nights probably explains where I got this cold from. A lot of work colleagues gathered in one place, or 2 places rather, because I was away for 2 different things. But yeah, hence the cold, hence the tiredness, and hence me being off all of last week. I'm just going to adjust my volume ever so slightly. I think the music is a little bit loud. I never quite tell. I'm just looking at the bars on here and trying to kind of eyeball it. This is weird. I had a very brief nightmare. Not nightmare. Nightmare's a bit extreme. Last week before last. So I woke up 45 minutes before my alarm was going to go off, and then very quickly drifted back into sleep. I had like a little micro dream, and weirdly, I dreamt that I was doing a stream, and it was a stream I was really proud of. I can't remember what in theory I was talking about on this, but I thought, wasn't just a rambling mess. It was, so maybe I'd said something profound, or maybe I thought this was some keen insights that I can harvest for TikTok or whatever it was. But whatever it was, I was quite pleased with it in this stream. And then I suddenly realised that the music I had on in the background was, I can't remember who it was. It was like a really kind of classic 70s, 80s rock band or something like that, like really mainstream. I don't know, it was like Bruce Springsteen or something like that. And it was one of those, that realization of, have I been on the entire time? And therefore, from a copyright perspective, I cannot use any of this. But no. So hence I'm sanity checking everything related to this. It's my normal Avani sound, royalty-free music. But yeah, such a weird little micro dream. Very, very strange. What else? So brain is stuff. I have notes here, and yet you can tell I've got a cold because I'm struggling to order things in a decent order. What else? Well, in theory, unless I get sicker, I'm doing the first interview recording for season 2 of Shought Thorts tonight, which is cool. Let's turn it down a little bit. So yeah, the first recording, I think I've got 3 scheduled in the diary and about 3 or 4 others where we're just looking at finding a good date. So that's really great. I'm really pleased that that's going ahead, and I've talked about this before. Essentially, my plan with season 2 here is I really want to get most, if not the whole season, recorded and edited before I start releasing it. I mean, maybe it won't be the whole season, but I want to get like a good 6 episodes or so released in advance of edited in advance of releasing, because then it just takes the pressure off of me. Because hence the fact I kind of took this long hiatus was the fact that I reached the stage where I was only just getting them edited before I was having to release them, which is not great from a quality perspective or a kind of time management perspective. But I'm very glad to be starting to record them tonight. I'll just be slightly baser than normal for that one. Maybe I could fix that in post. Don't know. What else? Just short aside of this one. I spent most of the weekend building IKEA furniture. We ended up doing a trip to IKEA because there's some stuff we needed. We're looking at a lot of essentially storage solution stuff. I've talked about this before. We downsized a lot when we moved from Scotland to England, and we got rid of a lot of stuff. We still got a lot of stuff. So we've been looking about creative storage solutions, and we decided to get 2 big bits of furniture to help us out with that. And then inevitably it was spending that afternoon and evening putting the stuff together. And I don't mind putting together IKEA furniture, but this one was just a bit of a faff. So hands are a little calloused from that. But I'm very glad it will kind of declutter an awful lot, which is great. You can kind of tell I'm kind of on a bit of a kick about decluttering and stuff like that, or very least organising stuff, by the fact I finally got stuff up on my walls. I didn't mention this. Finally put something like those pictures have been like down there out of frame, for a while, and Longclaw has been kind of balanced somewhere else, and it's like, and I need to actually put this stuff up and get stuff sorted, because what you can't see is that my office is an absolute bomb site. So slowly chipping away and getting stuff sorted, because it really does help from a mental health perspective. That about it? Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about more specific geeky things, or less specific, I suppose. How you want to do it? More intentional geeky things. Let's go with that, rather than me rambling about how my weekend is and the fact that I'm sick. So last week, no, it can't have been last week. Maybe it was at the weekend. I can't. Good grief, I'm tired, aren't I? Oh dear. Recently, let's go with that. Very recently, I finished the main plot on Cyberpunk 2077, which was the first game I started playing when I got my PlayStation 5. And it's taken me a long time to play it because I'm a bit of a completionist, and I have not completed the whole thing. I certainly haven't by a long stretch. I mean, I've done the main quest. I haven't touched Phantom Liberty yet, and there's a lot of side quest stuff I have not done yet. But I didn't just want to blitz the main quest. I did want to do lots of stuff along the sides. So I want to do a kind of quick review of this one and what I thought of it. So I mean, genuinely I was very, very impressed. I think graphically it is very, very good. It's a very pretty game, and the amount of detail in it, both on a kind of macro and micro level, are very impressive. Like the amount of detail in like kind of seedy hotel rooms and stuff like that make it look very lived in. But equally, when you're kind of zooming on a motorbike across the city, never do you go, oh, they've cheated this to make this look to make this render easily. You know, all that's very well hidden. You know, you get a huge sense of scale, and there's some wonderful bits of this, especially without spoilers if you've not played it, in the lead up to the finale section where you are kind of flying over the city. And the level of detail is really quite impressive. So a very pretty game, and I think used the PS5's graphical capabilities very well. So I enjoyed that. The main plot itself I thought was quite interesting. I thought, again without spoilers, I wasn't 100% satisfied with the ending, and my understanding is basically broad strokes 3 different endings you can go for. So I will say I went the sort of Johnny route at the end, and I would have to maybe play that bit again or read more about it, because it didn't. It's a lie. It did make sense. It just felt slightly odd in terms of the are you dying or are you not dying kind of thing. So it was slightly odd, the ending, and it felt. No, I think the thing about the ending that got me is it seemed very quick. That was the thing. I was playing through it and as I said, doing a mixture of side quests and main mission stuff. And the main mission is really pushing you down that route in terms of the, if you don't do something about this, you're going to die. And then suddenly I was at the end. And yeah, I can't quite tell you why it didn't quite land for me. I'm going to need to digest this a little bit more. It was almost the kind of like, okay, we're going on the last mission here, and it didn't quite have the grandeur of something like the Mass Effect 2 suicide mission. It didn't quite have that kind of wah to it. And I did have a boss fight in it. Hello, Protostyle. Hope you're doing well. I'm talking in a spoiler-free-ish kind of way about just finishing the main playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077. So this finale mission, it didn't quite have the grandeur of some other games. The boss fight itself, I thought, was quite good, but again, it didn't. I felt it could have sold it more, and maybe I've been spoiled by things like Baldur's Gate 3, where when you are in an epic battle, whether it's the final battle or something really epic like the Raphael fight in Baldur's Gate 3, and the music does a lot for this, you can feel the stakes in the way they present it with things like music. What was effectively the final boss fight near the end of Cyberpunk 2077, it was quite a good fight. But I felt they could have done more with it to up the stakes. I think they could have made it a bit less, I'll just move around this room and try and find ways to shoot him without him killing you. I think it could have been. I think there's good potential there for something maybe more interesting that they maybe didn't take full advantage of. And then the ending itself, because I went the Johnny route, was odd. Because it's sort of a cliffhanger-ish, or as in it's unresolved. Not necessarily in a bad way. Oh, good bot, Seribot. You are fantastic for catching spam. Love it. Thank you. Yeah, so I did enjoy the game. I really did enjoy the game. I thought the ending was just slightly weaker than it could have been, which is a shame. There's a lot of side quest stuff I could do. There's a lot of There's some side quests that actually quests I can do. Equally, there are a lot of mopping up bits and pieces of completionist type stuff to do. And I've got Phantom Liberty, and I do understand that Phantom Liberty is very good. So I will undoubtedly return to that. And I'll probably return to that with my main save, where it saves you open world before you go into the finale. So I'll do more stuff, and then I'll probably play the finale again and choose a different route. So I did enjoy it. I'm treading water right now is what I'm doing. So I might play little bits more of that over the course of this month, but I don't want to get stuck into another game because Dragon Age comes out at the end of the month. And I know when I get into Dragon Age, I'm just going to want to play that. So I was tempted to start playing Spider-Man, and I thought, well, if I start playing Spider-Man now, I'm going to stop playing it in 2 weeks' time, which is a bit silly. So I'll probably dabble in little bits more of Cyberpunk if I do decide to play anything in the evenings. Or I'll do stuff on stream and play Last of Us or War for the Overworld. But I won't start another big PlayStation game before doing Thingamajig. For Dragon Age. But there we go. 1 second. Yeah, so that was Cyberpunk. I would very much recommend it. And I think because of how much it was kind of patched and fixed and added to in the DLC and stuff like that, I didn't feel any of the crap that was originally thrown at it. When it originally came out, I understand it was buggy as all hell, particularly on the previous gen consoles, but I didn't feel that, which is good. What else is going on? Well, next thing I'm going to take a swig of drink because I can feel my throat going a little bit. But if you did play Cyberpunk 2077, I'd love to know what you thought about it. Um, Other things that are happening. I have not as much while I was away as I thought, but I've been trying to dedicate some more time to Little But Fierce stuff. So, for those who don't know, my kind of main writing thing is Little But Fierce, which is a rewrite of Fifth Edition, D&D Fifth Edition for kids to make it accessible by 6-year-olds. I produced a starter edition with 4 core classes and some core content. I've then done some add-ons based on it. I made the decision after Tabletop Scotland that I was going to start actively driving towards doing the complete version of this, which I'm calling Hero Edition, which is going to be crowdfunded spring of 2026. So I'll start the real advertising about that next year during convention season. So I'm working on that. Currently, I'm trying to finish up all the other classes. So I already completed the Priest, which I'd done basically all of for Stuff Legend, which will come out at some point before the end of the year. I hope. God, I've said it now. I have to actually do it. Basically, then I just need to sort out art is the main thing I need to do for that. I wrote the Knight, which is equivalent to the Paladin, which is the first one I did since deciding to actively work on Hero Edition. And I've almost finished the Bard. As of last night, I literally have got to write 2 spells, and then I finished the Bard class. And I'm quite pleased with how that went. There's an oddity in converting classes a little bit fierce, because essentially I'm trying to keep them rooted in the original 5th edition version of the class. Maybe inspired by elements of the 2024 version, where there are obvious issues. And Rangers, which I call Scouts, I drew in from a lot of different sources on that one, because there are some fundamental issues with the original rules as written Ranger. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid unnecessary complexity with classes. So if there's places where you go, that's a thing you've got to keep track of, for example, that becomes something where I think, is there a better way of doing it? Now, the example here that actually I had for both Knights and Bards, both of them had a problem with me in that you've got an ability currency that you need to keep track of. So for Knights, i.e. Paladins, you have lay on hands points. So you've got like 40 or how many, it's like 5 times your level, isn't it? Points of lay on hands that you can use, and therefore you've got to keep track of them. Similarly for Bards, you've got uses of inspiration, which you've got to keep track of. And what I've done actually in both cases, and I didn't realise I was going to do it in both cases, is I've turned those into dice mechanics, so that you've got essentially a die per level, different size ones. And in the case of the Knight, you can then roll those dice as lay on hands, and then you lose them and you get them back once you've rested and once you've completed sleeping. And similarly for Bards, you give inspiration dice to people, and once you use them, they're used up, and you get more once you finish resting. I had to fudge numbers a little bit, and for Bards, I think that gives you probably more uses of inspiration than you would otherwise. Maybe. Not massively differently, I don't think. But it seemed easier because rather than scribbling and down stuff on a sheet and crossing it out and writing other numbers, you've got your dice and then you hand them out. It's nice and physical, which is good. And I like that. And when I go into Monk, I may look at doing a similar thing for key points. I'm quite liking that mechanic, and as a way of avoiding having to keep track of something else. You know, bad enough you would keep track of health, so hit points, by crossing stuff out and writing a new number. I don't want to do that with multiple things. But I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there with classes. Like I said, I basically finished the Bards. The next one is the Monk, which I've got to figure out how I'm doing key in that regard. I did consider for a couple of evenings, maybe turning key and key-based abilities into effectively spells. And I did ask for the general opinion of that. I think people like the idea of key, but now that I've got that dice-based currency way of doing stuff for Knights and Bards, I think I've got an approach to key that I would be happy with. The other thing that's tricky about monks is essentially things like monk weapons and flurry of blows. Monks have always felt to me like almost like DLC. You know, you've got your core D&D 5th edition rules, and they've been applied in sort of variations for things like fighters and rogues and stuff like that. And it feels like the writer of the monk came along and went, how can I homebrew this existing rule set and shoehorn in how to make it work my way and break stuff? So you can go like, well, you know, monk weapons, it's not just simple weapons or martial weapons, it's specific weapons, you know, and then now they cause more damage. And then if you attack with a monk weapon, you can use a bonus action to do 2 flurry of blows attacks, which feels like a way of getting all around action economy and having action and bonus action. And it's not quite the same as 2 weapon fighting either, you know. So it's always felt to me like a kind of hit bashed version of the rules rather than feeling like it was fully integrated into it. So that's going to be my 2 biggest things about writing the monk are going to be that. It's going to be key and key points, which I think I've nailed. I think it'll be a dice-based mechanic, and that's fine. It's almost like Battle Masters in that sense. The other one will be trying to make the rules for monk weapons and flurry of blows feel like they're not an exception to the rule, you know. And I think there may be a small element of that I just can't avoid, but I at least want it to feel like not exception upon exception upon exception, which is kind of how it feels right now. Like, oh, we've got 2 different categories of weapon, but we've created a 3rd one just for monks, you know. It's never quite sat right with me. So, you know, watch this space. But I'm up for a challenge. You know, I've rewritten however many classes. I got 7, something like that. 7, 8. So it's doable. I will manage to do it. But it may be a bit of a challenge. So we'll see how that goes. And if there's anyone out there interested in playtesting some of these new classes, because you're an existing Little But Fierce player, do reach out and I'll send you work in progress copies of some of this stuff so you can start playing around with it. So after the monk, there's just one more to go, which will be the Tinkerer, which I've talked a little bit about before. This is an interesting one. So Tinkerer effectively, but not legally, is the Artificer. So it's going to be a version of the Artificer class. Apologies if anyone's just gone into ads, but you wouldn't be able to hear me even if I said it. Even if you weren't. So, yeah, we're in ads. Oh well, sorry. It's a 45-minute stream. I can't sadly afford to take ad breaks and just stop what I'm saying. But there we go. But I am a relatively small streamer, so maybe you can just hear me regardless. There we go. But what I was saying was, so Tinkerer is my answer to the question of the Artificer. Oh no, it's an incoming ad break. You've got 2 minutes. Let's start that sentence for the 3rd time. They're my version of the Artificer because I want to do a version of the Artificer. But annoyingly, the Artificer is not in any Creative Commons version of D&D 5th edition yet. Nor is it under OGL. Not that I would go back to OGL, but it's not in that either. Well, we've got to start. I would say that as a game for kids, anytime you can avoid new specialized mechanics, you should avoid them. If kids know the mechanics for their class, they can. If Kid A knows the mechanics for their class, they can help Kid B understand the mechanic for another class. Absolutely. And hello, Old Man Odd. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for contributing. The Mad Scientist is such an epic archetype, it kind of needs to be represented. I agree. I do love the feel of the Artificer. It's interesting you say Mad Scientist. There's kind of a Doc Brown in Back to the Future 3 kind of vibe, I think, to some Artificers. So I want to do it. I don't want to introduce guns. I'm not saying I will never introduce guns in Little But Fierce, but they certainly wouldn't be in the core book. But I think whether it's a potion maker or something like that, I think representing that style of character, I think, is important. But Because the Artificer is not in 5th edition Creative Commons or OGL, I can't base it. There's a caveat on this one. I can't directly base it on the existing Artificer that's been published. Now, there is a caveat here, which I have mentioned before, in that technically I 100% could. Legally speaking, he says, with no legal background, legally speaking, you cannot trademark rules for something. You can only trademark essentially the text of it. And because I was never going to be copying and pasting the text of the Artificer and sticking it straight in, it was always going to be, every word was going to be rewritten. Technically, legally speaking, I could absolutely just convert the Artificer over. But I'm one person and I don't have an army of lawyers. You know, I don't fancy picking a fight with Wizards of the Coast. It seems like a very stupid idea. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Copyrights the words, trademarks the logos, patents are the mechanics. But no, you can't do anything. There is nothing in theory they could do to stop me from converting the rules and changing all the words. But I'm not going to go down that route because it's a stupid thing to do. It really is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make my own answer to the Artificer question. In some ways it'll be similar. It'll be kind of like a half caster, I expect. In that, similar to bards and knights / paladins, you know, it's not going to be a full caster. It's going to be they get to only like level 3. So it'll be a similar sort of thing in that sense. I think I will be inspired by the published version of the Artificer. I will probably take elements from. I'll take similar approaches to some of the stuff from the Unearthed Arcana version of the Artificer, which I quite liked. So I'll be inspired and draw in threads from all of these, I think, plus notions of where I would like to take it. But it is an interesting one, this, because it'll be the first time that I'm actually writing a class from more or less scratch. With all the others, I've been taking the 5th edition Creative Commons version and adapting it. Sometimes very literally, like the fighter, I really didn't change much at all. I rounded up a couple of rough edges, I changed names of stuff, but more or less it's a straight conversion. For things like the Scout, which is the Ranger, I pulled it apart a lot more with the abilities that really didn't port over, or abilities that have been repeatedly pointed out are not terribly well written in the Ranger as written. You know, and hence the fact they did revised Ranger and stuff like that. So, but this will be the first time more or less doing it from scratch. So I'm excited to do that, but I'm probably go through a couple of iterations before I get this right. But I think it'll be interesting. I really do. But yeah, those are the two little but fierce big challenges left for me with classes. Monk, which I think I've got a bit of a roadmap for. Tinkerer, this will be an interesting one. I'll probably explore that one for a little bit more soon. What were we saying? Old man, what I'm wanting to play for the longest time is something akin to the Van Helsing archetype. Intellect-based monster hunter, not a tank, not a straight-up magic powerhouse. It's what they know that's the real power behind the character. Interesting. Yeah, I'll take that one away. That's a nice thought, because there are, in my mind, that always goes towards a sort of ranger, a scout sort of thing. But it's not that. You know, I've always liked this similarly, and absolutely inspired by, undoubtedly. I've always been a fan of the witch hunter class from Warhammer Quest. That was always quite fun. Kind of very much fell into that sort of, I mean, thematically that archetype, clearly. But also in terms of they're not really a fighter, you know, they're not a tank, but they're, you know, using their intellect for some abilities, you know. So I would be intrigued to explore that in some manner, providing it was distinct enough from other classes. I think that could be fun. And then kind of there from Little But Fierce, you know, the other big stuff with you will be adding a lot more monsters, a lot more creatures. So we've got, I kind of gave you enough stuff to play around with in the previous one. Now I want to do a lot more. What I also would like to do, and this is interesting that I just mentioned Warhammer Quest there, is I think I'll probably include some random creature tables in this full version of Little But Fierce, so that if you're doing an adventure off the cuff, or to help storytellers in their planning, you could maybe have a table to roll from where essentially you can have a variety of different creatures that you could encounter in a dungeon or in a forest or something like that, ranging from easy things to more challenging encounters. It's nice to have those sorts of resources available, either if your players go completely off the beaten path, or you just want to do something really random as it goes, or just a starter. I'm harkening back to that me that played Warhammer Quest. What were the things that I really liked in those resources in like the role playing guide, and I want to try and embed those similar my version of those in this full version of Little But Fierce, so you could pick it up and have everything you need in order to run this game. So I think some random monster tables would be quite fun, and I'll probably do some random treasure tables as well, because again, it's nice to have that sort of stuff. It takes the onus away from certainly a younger storyteller having to plan everything. It's nice to have those, things that will do a little bit of it for you, which would be quite nice. Ideally, I would like to cards as well for a similar purpose, but then I have to go down physical printing and stuff even further than I'm already going with this. So that's probably why I won't do that to begin with. It's one less thing to spend creative spoons on if you don't have 100%. GMing, DMing, storytelling, there's enough going on as it is, and it'll feel even more so if you're a kid doing it. So just some of that heavy lifting being taken from you is certainly a relief, absolutely. So that's why I'm going to include that sort of stuff. Anything else? I guess the only other thing I'll say about Little But Fierce on this one is I am making some additions to the starter edition as well as I'm doing this. There are corrections. If I ever spot any errors, correcting them as I go. I've also specifically added 2 more things that based on decisions I've made during the Hero Edition that I put into the Starter Edition. So firstly, I put in some rules for how you do horse riding, kind of mounted combat stuff if you want to do it, because I kind of did that in a very hand-wavy way beforehand. So I've explicitly included those now. I've also, actually an idea that was inspired by the 2024 Player's Handbook, I've put some more little reminder icons on the classes so you can more easily tell what level you get certain powers. I quite like how I've done that now because it makes it easier to reference, which is good. The other one I will be doing but have not done yet is I will do something specifically on prosthetics. That'll be in the Hero Edition. That I will also include in the Starter Edition. I do want to include something along the lines of referencing regular prosthetics and things like wheelchairs and the like, and magical stuff. I would like to work with Mark Thompson for that to have some sort of combat wheelchair type thing in there. We'll see if that happens. I would really like to though. And I suspect he would be open to it because he's done combat wheelchair stuff for a number of different systems. So I will reach out. But that is definitely something where I will include it in it. I will write it for the Hero Edition, but I'll retroactively put it into the Starter Edition because it's digital. It's very easy to do that. And I'll release new versions that include that stuff because I don't want to have that stuff effectively behind a paywall. I really don't. So yeah, Little Bit Fierce stuff is going well. I'm really happy with how it's going. And if you are going to MCM at the end of the month or going to Dragon Meet next month, I would love to talk Little Bit Fierce with you. I really do get a buzz going to conventions and talking to people about this stuff. Every time I come back with more ideas of things I want to pursue along the way, which is great. Last little bits and pieces on this because I'm not going to stop it at this stage, but just a little note I made to myself. It was something I was tempted to include in the intro section, but it's an oddity in this one. So I have about 5 years ago, 5 years ago? Probably about 5 years ago. Oh my god, time flies. Sorry, question. Got anything north of the border coming up? Not really. I was at Tabletop Scotland last month, and I greatly enjoyed that. I don't think I'll be up in Scotland anytime soon. I don't think. But if I am, I will. I'll make sure I tell you about it on these streams. I also do put appearances stuff. Certainly where I'm actively doing something, go on my website. So when, and it'll be very soon, next couple of days, when my Dragon Meet panel gets announced, that will go up on my website. So that stuff will be up. But yeah, what was I saying? So about 5 years ago, I ended up getting myself a set of Apple AirPods. Because I was commuting, it was very, very convenient to get them. I think I got them with my phone contract for a little bit more. They sadly just degraded in terms of battery life to the degree that they were only lasting like 50 minutes, not even quite an hour on a full charge, which was, I could live with it. I mean, it's a very first world problem. It absolutely is. But it was a frustration, especially for longer travel, because sometimes I do have to do longer travel. So I've been meaning to replace them for a while, and through some points I accrued via my day job, I was able to pay for most of them replacements using that. So I decided to get myself some sort of updated AirPods. Specifically, I got this is not a product placement, or certainly not a sponsored one. I got myself AirPods Pro 2, I think, version 2, whatever the hell the naming convention is for those. I very much like them. They are the battery life is fantastic. It's like about 4 or 5 hours now. Love it. Because that was one more thing I had to worry about. That was one thing I had to worry about doing Shought Thorts recordings, was length of my AirPods lasting, because I didn't want to have big cans on while recording stuff. So yeah, that's convenient. But there are two features that are very odd on them, and I just thought I'd talk about them briefly because of my experience with them. So the first one is they've got noise cancellation, which you can have on, and you can vary this. You can vary this. You can have it on, off, and in a halfway sort of mode. But you can also vary it based on the app you're using at the time. So for example, you could have it on when you're listening to music, but off if you were listening to a podcast, say, if you wanted to. So you can have noise cancellation, and how the noise cancellation seems to work, I'm going to need to read about this, because it's clearly putting pressure on your ears. It's very strange. Like if you put noise cancellation on them to full, I can feel it against my ears to the degree that I even start to feel slightly travel sick. I think if I have that sitting on, I'm going to need to get used to it, because it is slightly weird. It's very effective. It is incredibly effective. But you can feel it. It's very odd. It's a very strange sensation. So I think I will be dabbling in that to get my body used to it. And maybe I won't use it. Maybe I'll just go, nope. My old brain and my old ears cannot cope with it. But it's very clever, however the heck it works. So, interesting. The other one there, which is so bloody clever, but disconcerting, is the spatial audio. So essentially, rather than just having left channel, right channel, it's clearly got lots of little speakers in it, so you can make it sound like it's coming from different places. Like it can sound like it's coming from below you and above you and over here and stuff like that. And you can have that in two different modes. You can have that one just on, but in a fixed sort of way, so that if there's essentially a left channel and a right channel, it'll figure out using various data it's got where it wants to put it. Which is great for podcasts, for example, especially when there's multiple speakers, so that different people's voices come from different places. That's pretty good. It's also got one that takes into account, takes into account you turning your head. So rather than it being left channel's always this, right channel's always this, bottom left is always this, bottom right is always that, if I turn my head, it moves it relative to the device I'm playing on. So in this case, if I was holding my phone here in front of me, you can't see my hand. If I have my phone here in front of me, well, why am I doing that? I'll just maybe hold my phone. So if I have my phone here, and I turn my head, it would always sound like it was coming from my phone or relative to the direction of my phone. Why the heck would you do this? One would ask. Well, I found it actually, when I was listening to music, it was strange. It was strange. It was almost like the band was playing from my phone, which was slightly odd. you know, and with podcasts, again, slightly odd. I wouldn't see the purpose for it. I mean, very clever, it can do it. But what I did watch was I watched a couple of episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks while I was on the train. And that was quite cool because it sounded like I was watching it on a TV because the noise sound was coming from my phone, which was very cool, and it was a much better kind of audio-visual experience for watching on the train. But the number of times I had to take my headphones out of my ears just to reassure myself that I hadn't actually put the volume up on loud, because everything in my brain was telling me the noise isn't coming from your headphones, the noise is coming from the phone, and you're playing something out loud on a train and you're pissing people off. But no, I mean, the things in your ears, it is working correctly. It is just so very clever. And it must be using accelerometers in the headphones and accelerometers in the phone to figure it all out. And that is very, very clever. I mean, my hat's off to the Apple engineers on that one, that they managed to make that work. Like I said, it remembers what you set it to for various apps, so I will continue to have that setting on video stuff. I don't think I'll have it on audio only stuff because it's, well, or I just have the basic version of it on the fixed left and right version, not the head tracking one for those. But very cool, very clever. We'll see how I get on with the noise cancellation though. It is still slightly disconcerting. It really is. But I'm curious if there are people out there watching or listening to this who have more modern, god damn it, I can't talk. You can tell the cold's getting me. Who have modern AirPods or similar, because undoubtedly like other brands do similar things now, and that use those two technologies. Let me know what you think about them, because very cool, but it's taking a little while to get used to, and that's kind of definitely an old man shouts at clouds style thing. That is new technology that Dave is not quite accustomed to. But I am enjoying it. It is quite cool. Anyway, let's wrap this up because, alas, I must go back to my day job. Things to be done. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this kind of geeky rambling, please take the time to follow me here. I really much appreciate it. Expanding my audience is absolutely wonderful, especially as it means I can do more stuff. It really does. So please follow me here. If you ever want to chuck me your Prime subscription, you are more than welcome to do so, but there is absolutely no pressure upon you to do so. Life is busy and expensive. But what I would ask you to do, if you have not done so already, is to follow me on YouTube, where not only do you get the VODs of all of my streams, both my lunch chats and gaming streams, but you also get original content like my podcast / interview show, Shought Thorts. Like I said, I'm recording season 2 as of tonight, and those will be coming out probably end of November. So please take the time to follow me on YouTube as well. Watch those episodes. If you like them, share them with other people. Each one is 13 to 15 minutes long, so it is perfect for something to listen to while nipping out to the shops, or on a train, or in the car, or watching while you're having your breakfast or your lunch or something. And I would love to expand my audience further with them because I'm really enjoying doing them, and it gives me incentive to keep doing it. So thank you very much. If you don't follow me on socials, you can find me, for the time being at least, on Twitter at DT Bradshaw RPG. You can find me on Blue Sky at dcbradshaw.com, and you can find me on Threads at DC Bradshaw. So there we go. I'm in all those places. And thank you very much for popping in today. I really do appreciate it. Next stream, I think normally lunch chat with games is Wednesday. I think we're going to do it tomorrow because I actually have a bit more time at lunch tomorrow. I have to start early, but I can't finish early. So I'm just going to take a longer lunch in the middle of the day, which allows me to play a bit more. So we're probably going to carry on playing Harva, and we'll do that tomorrow, I think. Probably around 1 o'clock. But watch out my socials. I will announce it tomorrow morning once I've got a slightly better and clearer idea of my schedule tomorrow. Let's have a look who is streaming for doing a bit of raiding. I can see that Cypher is streaming, as is Tig. I know Cypher generally has minimum viewer counts on there for raiding. So I think we'll be raiding Tig. Tig is an absolute delight. Do say hello. They are mostly playing horror games. They play a lot of horror games anyway, but she's specifically doing them for October and is in very cool makeup today. So I think we'll start a little raid over there, and we will, once all that's in place, I will bid you farewell. So hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for joining me, and hope we see you again tomorrow for Lunch Chat with Games. All right, bye.